Hello and welcome back, guys, for the lesson fourth now, which is for module one, and it is all about ARM templates. ARM templates stands for Azure Resource Manager templates. These templates are very effective in case you want to rebuild an environment or do automation tasks within your environment. So this lesson is dedicated to ARM templates, and we'll be discussing a lot of things within this. For example, we'll be discussing what are the advantages, first of all, to have a template. What is the schema of the template itself? That means how does a template looks like. Now these templates are based upon JSON. So if you do not have a prior idea about JSON, uh, I would suggest that go read certain things about the JSON, how it works, the very basic thing, because like in the exam you will get questions regarding JSON templates as well, these ARM templates as well. So make sure you know basics about ARM templates. You should know how to read them. You should know about the parameter as well as variable. Then I will take a QuickStart template, which is a sample template provided to us by Microsoft, and then I will show you how to run those templates. So let's first talk about what are these templates and what are the advantages of it. With the help of these ARM templates, you can deploy your resources on Azure in a very quick manner, and you can repeatedly use those templates again and again. For example, if you created a template which creates your environment with 10 virtual machine, 2 virtual network, 1 SQL database, 1 web application, you might want to recreate that environment. That can be done effectively with the help of ARM templates, right? How why quickly? Because let's suppose I want to create 10 virtual machines, right? So I'll go to the portal or I'll go to the PowerShell, and one by one I'll be creating those virtual machines. So through PowerShell you can actually automate it, but through portal you have to go to one virtual machine, write the information about the virtual machine, then go ahead and write the information about second virtual machine. So it will take a lot of time. In PowerShell, you have to create your script in a sequential manner. So if you skip anything, the PowerShell command won't work. You might want to redefine the dependencies over there. But with the template, these kind of problems are gone. You can reuse the template. It does not, you do not have to depend upon any kind of dependency in terms of resources. It is very quick in nature. That means if you want to deploy 10 virtual machines, they will be deployed in parallel, right? And there are certain other advantages as well. For example, it improves consistency, right? So when you use these templates provides you a common language. That means JSON is not only used on Azure, JSON is used on multiple cloud platforms as of now, and you always these templates always remain same. For example, in PowerShell I told you that last module was Azure RM, latest is AZ. Maybe the commands might change, the syntax might change, right? But in this case, your structure, your format, your expression within the template, they always remain the same. Second advantage is express complex deployment. With the help of templates, you can deploy multiple resources in the correct order. So you do not need to worry about, let's suppose if you want to deploy a virtual machine, prior to deployment of virtual machine, you should have a virtual network. So you should not be worried about that, yes, I have to deploy a virtual network first, then a virtual machine, and then some other resources. So you do not have to worry about going sequentially in here. You can do complex deployment without worrying about how the resources will be created. Your resources will be created, and the dependency will be taken care of automatically by the template. It reduces manual error prone tasks. So when you create anything manually on the Azure portal, you might make some mistakes on the information that you're feeding. Maybe you are writing the wrong virtual machine name over there. Maybe you are using the wrong address space in virtual network. With the help of templates, since you have already defined it, there is no scope for manual or error over there, because all the conditions you have already described within the template. It expresses requirement through code. So whatever you want to create, it is created within the code which are within the template, and that code can be reusable. So it promotes reuse. It's not like you can use a template only once. You can reuse it. You can create multiple environments out of it. It can be modular and it can be linked. That means you can connect two templates together. Maybe you can call a template within a template itself, right? So the resource manager template can be linked together, right? And it simplifies orchestration. Like I told you, for the purpose of automation and orchestration, we require templates. So these templates helps us a lot when we want to uh, deploy all of our resources and perform multiple operations. So for orchestration tasks, templates are very helpful. What is the schema of the template? So as you can see on the right hand side, the schema of the template is defined. First of all, it defines all the resources, all the resource manager resources in a deployment. So whether you want to create a virtual machine or an SQL database or a web app, everything will be mentioned within the template itself. It is written in JSON and it has a collection of key value pairs. What do I mean by key value pairs? Key value simply means, let's say I say name. Name is a key and Mahesh is the value of that key. I say designation. Designation is a key, trainer is the value of it. So when you put your data in the key value pair, where a key is, you can think of it as one column and the value is another column, that's what you call a key value pair. So any kind of data that you're feeding within the template, it is in the form of key value. And I'll show you how it is key value in the next demonstration. Each key is a string. So usually the keys that we create are in the form of a string. By string, I mean words, right? For example, if I'm creating a virtual machine, the virtual machine name will be string. Let me show you with an example, a quick example over here. So let me open up a notepad. Let's suppose I want to create a template which will create a virtual machine. So this will be my key. VM name will be my key. It is in the string format, as you can see. It is all words, and the VM name can be my test VM, which is also a string. Now the second key that I want to give is the key of IP address. This is again a string, but IP address is not in the form of string here, right? IP address is in the form of numeric. Or maybe I want to say I want to create another key over here which says um, let's say started, right? It basically whether the virtual machine is started or not. Here I can give boolean as value. Boolean means whether it is true or whether it is false. So key values always remain inside. The key value types will always be in the form of strings, right? But the value can be string, numerical, boolean, anything that you want, right? So each key is a string, like I told you. Each value can be a string, number, boolean expression, list of values, object, whatever value you want to give to it. Now I will show you how do you deploy a template within your resource group, and how does it creates those resources for you, right? So let's do that. Let's see how do we deploy a template. So for that, I'm going to go to my Azure portal. Okay, one second. Here you go to my Azure portal. So this is my resource group. You always deploy templates within a resource group. So let's suppose you have a template that you have created. Once you have your template created, go to the resource group and click on deployments. Within the deployments, you can see that there are no deployments as of now. The last deployment was of a virtual network, which I created through the Azure portal itself. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy a new template. So from where you can deploy a new template, for them you have to simply write onto the Azure portal deployments, and as soon as you will write deploy or deployment, it shows you a message which says deploy a custom template. Click on this and you go to custom deployments, and then there is an option of building your own template in the editor. Click on this, and here you can start writing and creating your template. Once the template is created, you can simply execute it, or you can simply deploy it. You can also load your template if you have already created it within your system. You can load it from the system itself, or you can download the existing template as well, right? So this is from where you can deploy your custom JSON templates, right? Now, this can also be deployed via PowerShell. So to deploy the template through PowerShell, go to Azure portal and search for the PowerShell command for that. Because in the examination, they will not only ask you how to deploy a template through portal, they will also ask you how to deploy a template through PowerShell, right? So both of the options you should know. Now, the template itself is divided into multiple areas. The first area is the template parameters. So let me go back to schema first, right? So this is how a JSON template looks like. It has two curly brackets within which all the information is written. The first information is about the schema. This is mandatory. Schema is basically the location of the JSON schema file. It is a URL of the location of the JSON schema file, which gives you the information that what particular what kind of language you are using, or which version of the language you are using in here. So as of now, you can see within this we are using 2015 version of JSON template. So by default, even if I go in here to the deployments, and if I click on here, you can also see by default the schema automatically comes when you start creating it. This schema defines what will be the syntax of your JSON template, what will be the layout of your JSON template, right? Now the next thing in here is the, if you go to the PPT, the next thing in here is the content version. Content version is also required. It is a mandatory field. Content version simply denotes which version of the template you are using. Let's suppose you created the templates for the very first time. That will be your version 1. Then you made some modification and you named the content version as 1.1. So for versioning purpose, you can also define the value within the content version. So if I go back to my Azure portal, you see by default the first version is 1.0.0.1. Let's suppose I created my template in here. Afterwards, I can simply say that the next template with modification will be 1.0.0.1. So for versioning purposes, you can use content version. The next thing in here is the parameter, as you can see from the PPT itself. Parameters are not mandatory field. Parameters are simply values that you will provide once this template will be deployed. For example, let's suppose I'm creating a template which will deploy a virtual machine, a very basic template, right? Now, in that particular template, either I can give the username and password to access the VM within the template, or I can provide them inside the parameter, and I can say that the user will give the admin username and password once the deployment is running. Getting my point, right? So parameters are nothing. Parameters are the values that you will provide once the execution or the deployment of the template will begin. So if I create a template which will deploy a simple VM inside a resource group, I can give parameter like username and password. That means when the deployment will begin, it will give you an option to write your username and password. So it will be user, so the username and password will be taken from the person who is deploying the template. It won't be hard coded, or it won't be mentioned within the template itself. Variables are second thing. So let's take an example of parameter ones. So here is an example of parameters. Here I'm defining a parameter which is admin username, which is the key actually. Type is string. Usernames are usually in the string format. They are words, right? And description I have written, this is the username for virtual machine. Similarly, I have given another parameter which is admin password. The type is secure string. For any kind of secrets, passwords, or keys, we use secure string type. Secure string is basically the string which will not show you what you are writing. Instead of that, it will show you black dots which you will see when you're writing a password. So it will be masked, right? For if you want to give passwords or some sort of secrets or keys, the data type that you will be using over here is secure string. Then in the metadata, I'm writing description, which is password for the virtual machine, which tells for which purpose this parameter is being used, right? So when these parameters are put within the template for creation of a VM, when you deploy that template, admin username and admin password you have to give, right? These are the parameters that I'm defining. So these are configurable properties, right? Now the second thing is variables. Variables are the information which is defined within the template itself. For example, maybe I do not want to give, uh, you can say, the virtual network within which the virtual machine is created from the user end, right? I want to hard code this. I want to say that, okay, I have already defined that the name of my virtual network will be this, the address space of my virtual network will be this, subnet will be this. So you are in a way hard coding your requirements in here. So that's what comes within the variables. So these are the values that are used throughout the template. Okay, so I have already given if I'm deploying a virtual machine, the username and password, since they are in parameters, it will be given by the user who is deploying the template. But virtual network name, public IP address name, subnet, address prefix, these information I have already mentioned in variable. So it will be taken automatically from here. User doesn't have to provide them, right? Now we'll go to a quick start template. What are quick start templates? Quick start templates are basically JSON templates which are managed by the Azure community. So these are templates created already by Microsoft employees and Microsoft partners and Microsoft enthusiasts all over the world. So they have created these templates for you so that you can use them and you can run them, right? So from where you can get it? You can get it from http://azure.microsoft.com en-us resources-templates. I will go to my portal and you will see that uh, I already have opened Azure Quick Start Template. To open it, simply go to the URL which I have told you, right? And I'm going to deploy a very simple template in here. So I have selected deploy a simple Windows VM template. So this is the template that I'm going to use. I will click on this. Once I'll click on this, it gives me the description of this template. It says this template allows you to deploy a simple Windows VM using a few different options using the latest patch version. This will deploy an A2 size VM. This is the size of the VM, which I will let you know, in the resource group location and returns the FQDN of the VM. There are certain parameters which are also defined. For example, admin username, admin password, DNS label, Windows OS, and location. These are the parameters. That means these information user have to provide once he is deploying that template. These are not defined inside the variables. These are defined within the parameters. So we have to give this information once we are deploying the template. There is an appropriate PowerShell command which has also been given. So if you do not want to deploy it through portal, you can use this PowerShell command to deploy them through PowerShell. Okay, and an equivalent CLI command is also given to you, right? Each template has a URI. URI is unique resource identifier, which you need to give if you want to deploy them onto Azure. So that's the PowerShell part. I would like you to run this PowerShell command when you want to deploy it through PowerShell. I will show you how to deploy it through the portal. So first of all, there are two options in here, deploy to Azure or browse on GitHub. So I'll be going to browse on GitHub option. Once I go to browse on GitHub option, there are multiple files in here. So most of you might be aware of GitHub, right? It's a repository where you can keep your code, right? Here, there is a lot of information which is written. But what do I want? I want to see the JSON, right? So to view the JSON file, and before viewing the JSON file, I will click on this button which says visualize. Visualize button basically gives you an idea about what all components will be created, right? So in the JSON template, everything will be written in the form of a code, But in the visualize, you can actually see how or which resources will be created. So it's a bit small in here. So when you go to your own laptops, you can actually increase the size. So it says it creates a VM by the name of my VM. It has, this is the symbol of there is a load balancer created in here. There is a network interface card. These are the symbol of network interface card, virtual network, public IP, storage account, etc. Right? So you can first click on visualize and you can see what all things it's gonna create. Even if you do not click on visualize, that's fine. Now um, let me go back to my QuickStart templates again. Okay, so there it is. So I'm back on the page on GitHub. So now I will check the JSON file, right? How would I check it? There is the JSON file which I have. So I will click on this. And it shows me the whole code which is written in terms of JSON. So you can see already schema is defined, just like I've told you. Then the content version, this is the first version of this JSON template, so the version is defined. Parameters, whichever information user will feed at the time of deployment, that is mentioned within the parameters, like admin username, admin password, DNS label, Windows OS version which you'll be using in this VM, location, right, which location it will be taking. And then I have defined certain variables as well. For example, I have defined storage account name, nickname. My nickname will be my VMNIC, subnet name, subnet prefix, public IP. You might not know all this information, right, which is fine. And then I have created resources. Resources are basically what? Resources, I have already told you, the implementation of what you want to create on Azure. So first of all, it is calling which resource provider? Microsoft.storage, and it is creating a storage account. I will let you know what storage account is. Just remember that now it is contacting the resource providers, and then with appropriate resource provider, it is creating appropriate resources. To create a public address, you require Microsoft.network resource provider, so that is being called in here. For virtual network also, we have the same resource provider. All network related thing, we have the same resource provider, Microsoft.network. And if you move further, I told you to create virtual machines, the resource provider name is Microsoft.compute. So now that is being called, and that is it. That's the information which has been written in here. You do not need to worry about all those information. Just remember what are the parameters, what are the variables, and what are the resource provider which has been called, right? So now what I will do, I will simply deploy this to Azure. Once I click on deploy to Azure, it will automatically come to a page where I've already shown you the custom deployment. So it will come to the same page, custom deployment. But now you will see that it has given me a lot of options. For example, it asked me what is my subscription, which resource group I want to create it. Let's suppose I want to create it within the my resource group. Okay, now these are the parameters, right? I told you the parameters has to be given at the time of deployment of template. So I have to give my username in here. I have to give my password in here. Username should be given inside in the form of string because the type was string. So if I write number in here, let's say, okay, it is taking it as a string as well, right? So let's say my username is Mahesh. Admin password was in the form of secure string. So now if I'll write it, you won't see the password, you will see only dots in here. So that's what type secure string does. DNS label prefix I have to provide, Windows OS version I have to provide, but you can see I have limited number of you can say options available in here. Why is it so? Because I have already defined only these operating system within the JSON template. And resource group location, so the location of this virtual machine will be the same as the location of the resource group. So the resource group that I selected is in East US, so the location of this VM also will be in East US. Let's go back to the template again and see it once more. So we already know schema and content version. Parameter, I have shown you that you will get them. Uh, Whatever you write within the parameter, those options you will get when you are deploying the template. But some of the options are mandatory, some of the options are not mandatory. That is also something that you can choose from here itself. So which parameters are mandatory, which parameters are not mandatory. Now if I go in here, in Windows OS version, you saw all the options. Only these operating systems were appearing over there. Why? Because I have already given that the allowed values of Windows OS version should be this. If user does not select any of these, by default select this value. This is the default value I have already given. So this kind of information, this kind of reading of template you should know, because if you are not able to read this much, it is very basic. If you look at it, it's very basic. It simply says that these are the Windows operating system that you can choose from, and this is the default value which will appear when you will go to the template. So it's pure English, nothing else. There is no syntax. Everything is arranged in the form of key value pair. These are the key and value pair. The name of the NIC that will be created, this will be the name of it. Address prefix that I will be using will be this. Virtual network name will be my VNet, right? So all this information are basically in the normal English format. There is no syntax just like you used in PowerShell. So if you look at it, if you learn JSON, it's quite easy as compared to learning PowerShell. All right, so I'm here. So let's deploy a VM within my resource group that I have already selected. This will be my username, and let me write a password as well. DNS label prefix, it is basically a URL which will be used to access this virtual machine. So I'm just giving it any URL. So just giving it a random name. Don't worry about what DNS label prefix is as of now. By default, it has chosen 2016 data center. So I can choose this one, or I can select any other option. Let me choose this option only. Location, it has automatically taken from the resource group. Click on I agree to the term and click on purchase. Now what will happen? This template will be deployed within your resource group, which will simply create a virtual machine for you and all other related resources. Now, this is a very simple template that I'm showing to you, which is just deploying a virtual machine along with the dependent resources. Similarly, you can also deploy a lot of resources within your environment. You don't even have to worry about how many resources you can deploy, right? And you can call templates within templates as well, right? You can integrate, you can link two templates together. All these things you can do with the help of ARM templates, and they are reusable in nature. The code is with you. You can make modifications to it if you want. You can create a new version of it, but that code is reusable. You can create another virtual machine in another resource group using the same template, right? You simply have to select the resource group where you want to create it. Okay, so if you will go to my resource group now, you will see a lot of things has been getting created. So the NIC card with the same name is getting created, public IP with the same name is getting created, right? So all this deployment is getting done. You will see more and more resources created in here after some time, and it has taken the same uh, information which you have mentioned within the JSON file, right? So the name of the NIC was my VM NIC over there, right? That is the thing. That is what Azure ARM templates are. That's one quick start template. If you are good at creating your own templates, please feel free to write JSON, right? And let me tell you a very important thing over here. If you will write that you are uh, very good with ARM templates uh, in your resume, that will be very beneficial for you. There is a tool which is known as Terraform, which is most widely used with AWS. Terraform does almost the similar thing which ARM templates does, right? So Terraform is in great demand, but if you know ARM templates, you are equivalent to Terraform, because both Terraform and ARM templates are equally good in terms of orchestration and automation. So make sure you understand ARM templates, you know how to deploy them, you know how to read them, and you know how to create them to land a successful job in Azure automation. That was it, guys. I have already shown you how to explore the QuickStart gallery and how to run a template. Do try to deploy this with the PowerShell, right? See, deployment is simple. Either you can deploy it through Portal or you can deploy it through PowerShell. Doesn't make any difference. It's just the command that you need to know. The major thing is how to understand the template, how to read the template, how to see what the template will do. That is important because the questions that you will get inside your examination will be based upon what this template is doing. So they will give you a sample template and they will say, okay, this is written in parameter. What will be the options of it? So maybe they will give you a parameter and they will ask you, is there any default value assigned to it? Is there any allowed value assigned to it? So those kind of things you should know. All right, guys, thank you for joining again into this session. This is all about ARM templates. Do very extensively read about it, right? And that is all. We are done with our module 1. This is the last lesson for module 1. In the next video, we'll be discussing module 2. If you have any question regarding ARM templates, leave your comments and I will answer them. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.